I'll never forget the way my phone buzzed that afternoon. I almost didn't answer. But when I saw the name Sophia Green, event planner, flashing on the screen, my stomach flipped. Sophia was my brother's wedding planner, and deep down, I already knew this call wasn't going to be good. I picked up. "Hey, Sophia, what's going on?" I tried to sound casual, but I could hear the hesitation in her voice before she even spoke. There was this long pause. Then she said, carefully, like she was afraid of how I'd react, "Victoria, I don't know how to tell you this, but your family asked me to inform you that your invitation to Daniel's wedding has been canceled." I blinked, stunned. "I'm sorry." "What?" She rushed on, her voice trembling. They said they don't want you attending." "But the deposit you made? The $70,000? They're keeping it." For a moment, I didn't even breathe. Did I hear that right? My own family had not only uninvited me from my brother's wedding, but they also decided to pocket my $70,000 as if I were just their ATM. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I didn't beg. I just sat there in silence. And then, calmly, I said the words that would change everything. "Cancel the whole wedding." Sophia gasped. I could hear the shock catch in her throat. "Victoria, you can't do that. It's your brother's wedding." And that's when I laughed. Not because it was funny, but because for the first time in years, I finally realized the power I held. "You don't understand," I told her. My voice was steady, almost cold. "I own the venue. I own the hotel. I own the catering company. If I'm out, everything's out." The silence on the other end was deafening. I imagined Sophia sitting there with her clipboard, wide-eyed, realizing the full weight of what I'd just said. In that moment, the balance of power shifted. For years, my family had treated me like the outsider, the one who was only useful when I signed checks, the one they could conveniently ignore when it came to love, respect, or recognition. But this time, they had pushed too far. And for once, I wasn't just the forgotten daughter, the overlooked sister. I was the woman who controlled the ground beneath their feet, and I knew exactly what I was going to do when the big day arrived. When I tell people I own hotels, venues, and catering companies, they usually smile and say something like, "Wow, you must come from money." I never correct them. It's easier to let people assume I was handed everything on a silver platter. The truth? I wasn't given a thing. Not love, not support, and certainly not money. I built my life brick by brick because I had to. Because if I didn't, I'd still be the overlooked daughter in a family that never saw me for who I was. Growing up, my family lived in a beautiful estate in Connecticut. From the outside, we looked perfect. My father, Richard, was the strong, silent type, always in a tailored suit, always nodding politely at neighbors. My mother, Elaine, was elegant, sharp, the kind of woman who could command a room with a single glance. And then there was my younger brother, Daniel. He wasn't just the golden child. He was the entire family's obsession. Every birthday, every achievement, every little thing Daniel did was celebrated like it was the second coming of Christ. When he scored a goal at soccer, my parents threw a party. When he got into college, my mom sent out a press release. And me, I was the girl who made honor roll every year, the one who stayed up late studying, the one who landed a scholarship to a top business school. But in my family's eyes, my achievements were invisible. I can still remember one night, years ago. I was 15, clutching my report card with all A's. I walked into the dining room, beaming, waiting for someone to notice. My father barely looked up from his newspaper. My mother glanced at it once, smiled faintly, and said, "That's nice, dear." "Oh, Daniel, tell us about your soccer match." I sat there, the paper shaking in my hands, while my brother launched into a dramatic retelling of his game-winning goal. Everyone clapped for him. I sat silent, forgotten. That pattern never changed. How when I graduated college, I didn't ask my parents for help. They didn't offer it either. Instead, I scraped together loans, worked sleepless nights, and started my first business, a small catering company. At first, it was just me in a rented kitchen, cooking until 2 a.m, loading trays into a van. I remember crying in the parking lot some nights, my hands blistered, my body exhausted, but I kept going. Slowly, clients started recommending me. One event turned into 5. 5 turned into 20. Eventually, I bought my first venue, then a second, then a boutique hotel, then another. Within 10 years, I had built an empire my family never believed I was capable of. And yet, no matter how much I accomplished, I still longed for their approval. So when I got the invitation to Daniel's wedding, I felt something I hadn't felt in years: hope. I sat with my best friend Lena in a coffee shop the day after the invitation arrived. I remember running my fingers over the heavy envelope, tracing the gold lettering like it meant more than just fancy stationery. "Maybe this wedding will finally be different," I told her, my voice soft. "Maybe they'll see me, not just my checkbook." Lena looked at me over her latte, her expression a mixture of sympathy and caution. "Vic, don't hold your breath. They've shown you who they are. Why would a wedding change that?" I smiled, but it didn't quite reach my eyes. "Because people change, Lena. Families heal. Maybe this is the moment." But the truth was, even as I said it, a part of me didn't believe it. Still, I wanted to, desperately. The weeks leading up to the wedding were a blur of conversations with Sophia, the wedding planner. She called me about details constantly: table settings, floral arrangements, guest accommodations, and every time she always sounded relieved when I said, "Don't worry, I'll cover it." $70,000. That's what I contributed to make my brother's wedding shine. And I told myself it wasn't about the money. It was about belonging, about proving that I was part of the family too. I imagined walking into that ballroom on Daniel's big day, not just as the sister who was tolerated, but as someone who finally earned her place, someone my parents might, at long last, be proud of. I clung to that vision like it was oxygen. But here's the thing about hope. When it shatters, it cuts deeper than any knife. I didn't know it then, sitting in that cafe with Lena, sipping coffee and smiling at my brother's wedding invitation. But that envelope wasn't a symbol of acceptance. It was bait, a setup, a cruel reminder that in my family's story, I was never meant to be the heroine. And I was about to find out just how far they were willing to go to keep me in the shadows. The day it happened started out like any other. I had just finished a meeting with my hotel staff about an upcoming corporate event when my phone lit up with an incoming call. Sophia Green, Daniel's wedding planner. I smiled at first. Sophia had been calling me regularly about the wedding, tiny details about the menu, the linens, the floral arrangements. My $70,000 contribution seemed to have made me the unofficial problem solver, and I didn't mind. It gave me a reason to feel included. But that smile vanished the second I heard her voice. "Victoria?" she said softly, hesitantly. "Hey, Sophia." "What's up?" I asked, balancing my phone between my shoulder and ear as I shuffled papers. There was a pause, a long one. Then, I'm so sorry to have to tell you this, but your family asked me to call you. They wanted me to let you know that your invitation has been canceled." I froze, every sound around me fading. "I'm sorry, what?" Sophia's voice cracked. "They said you're no longer welcome at the wedding. And, they told me to also confirm that the $70,000 deposit you made will remain with them." For a second, I thought I misheard her. I actually pulled the phone away and looked at the screen, like maybe it wasn't real. "They're keeping my money?" I whispered. "Yes," she said quickly, almost apologetically. "They told me it was a family decision. I wish I didn't have to be the one to tell you. I know this isn't fair. It felt like the ground gave way beneath me. My own parents, my own brother. They had not only decided to cut me out of his wedding, but they had taken my money I gave in good faith, money I thought would bring us closer, and pocketed it like I was just some faceless investor." My hands shook. My chest tightened. I could barely breathe. Images from my past flooded back, sitting at that dinner table at 15 with my perfect report card ignored, the sound of applause for Daniel while I sat invisible. The way my mother always introduced me as the business one instead of my daughter. The way my father never once defended me when Elaine's sharp words cut me down. And now this was their final message to me. "We don't want you. We just want your money." I swallowed hard, trying to keep my voice steady. "Thank you, Sophia." I appreciate you telling me. She hesitated. Victoria, are you okay? I wanted to scream. I wanted to break down, but instead I forced a calmness into my tone that even surprised me. I'll be fine. We hung up and I just sat there in silence. The betrayal burned through me, hot and raw, but underneath that fire was something else, something colder. Resolve. Night, I couldn't sleep. I lay awake staring at the ceiling, every muscle in my body tense. My mind replayed every memory of being second best, every moment of being ignored, every sacrifice I made just to feel included. And now they wanted to humiliate me by cutting me out entirely. They wanted to remind me once again that I wasn't really part of the family. But here's the thing they didn't understand. I wasn't the fragile girl they'd raised anymore. I wasn't the one quietly sitting at the dinner table waiting to be acknowledged. I had built an empire. I wasn't just a guest at this wedding. I was the foundation it stood on. Every penny of that $70,000 deposit came with my contracts, my staff, my companies. Without me, there was no venue, no catering, no hotel. They thought they could humiliate me quietly behind the scenes while still enjoying the luxury I provided, but they underestimated me. The next morning, I looked at myself in the mirror. My eyes were tired, but there was a sharpness there I hadn't seen before. A decision had taken root. I wasn't going to let them rob me of my dignity and walk away unscathed. They wanted me out of the wedding? Fine. But if I was out, then the wedding itself was out too. Later that day, Sophia called again to finalize some floral arrangements. I answered, my voice steady. Actually, Sophia, I said, interrupting her mid-sentence, cancel the whole wedding. There was silence on the line. Then she gasped. Victoria, you can't do that. It's your brother's wedding. I smiled faintly, though my heart pounded in my chest. No, Sophia, you don't understand. I own the venue. I own the hotel. I own the catering company. If I'm out, everything is out. I could practically hear her jaw drop. Wait, you mean exactly, I said. My voice was calm, final. That was the moment I took back my power. When I hung up the phone with Sophia, my entire body trembled, not with fear this time, but with a steady current of determination. For most of my life, I had been the one my family overlooked, the daughter they dismissed until they needed something. But that call had flipped a switch. I wasn't going to cry into my pillow or beg to be included. Not anymore. I was going to take control. That evening, I sat at my desk with a glass of wine, reviewing the contracts I had with my own companies. The irony wasn't lost on me. My family, so eager to cut me out, had unknowingly made their entire wedding dependent on me. The venue? Hayes Grand Ballroom? My property. The hotel? Hayes Luxury Suites? My flagship. The catering? Hayes Culinary Services, my staff, my kitchens, my recipes. Every single detail of Daniel's wedding day ran through me. They thought they could banish me while still enjoying the empire I had built with my own hands. I smiled bitterly. Not this time. The next morning, I met Lena for breakfast. She noticed the tightness in my jaw before I even sat down. You didn't sleep, did you? She asked, stirring her coffee slowly. I shook my head. No. But I made a decision. Her eyes flickered with worry. What kind of decision? I leaned forward, my voice low but steady. I told Sophia to cancel the wedding. Lena's spoon clattered against her cup. You what? I own everything, Lena. The hotel, the venue, the catering. If I'm not welcome at that wedding, then there won't be a wedding. Not on my dime, not in my space. She stared at me for a long moment, torn between shock and admiration. Finally, she whispered, Vic, this is going to make World War III in your family. I nodded. Let it. They've been at war with me my whole life. I'm just finally fighting back. The days that followed were a blur of quiet, calculated moves. I didn't make loud announcements. I didn't send angry emails. Instead, I simply instructed my staff, hold all catering orders, cancel ballroom preparations, lock down hotel bookings under the Hayes family name. When my managers asked why, I told them calmly, there's been a change in arrangements. I could see the confusion in their eyes, but they didn't question me. They trusted me. Unlike my family, these were people who respected me, who understood the weight of my word. At night, I rehearsed the confrontation I knew was coming. I pictured Daniel storming up to me in his tuxedo, Elaine's voice dripping with venom, my father's disappointed silence. The thought didn't scare me. It steadied me. For once, I wouldn't be on the defensive. 3 days before the wedding, my mother called. It was the first time she had spoken to me since the invitation debacle. "Victoria," she said curtly, skipping any pleasantries, "we need to confirm the suite numbers for our guests. Daniel's fiancé's family is arriving Friday and—" "Stop," I interrupted. My voice was calm, but sharp enough to cut her sentence in half. "There won't be any suites." Not in my hotel silence. Then a sharp intake of breath. "What are you talking about? You canceled my invitation. You kept my money. You thought you could humiliate me while still using me. That ends now." Her tone turned icy. "Victoria, don't be dramatic. This is your brother's wedding. You'll ruin everything." I almost laughed. "No, Mother. I'm not ruining anything. I'm simply removing myself. If my presence is so offensive to you, then so is my contribution. You can't have one without the other." There was a sharp click as she hung up on me. That night, Lena came over with takeout and 2 bottles of wine. She found me sitting on the floor of my office, surrounded by stacks of contracts. "You're really doing this," she said quietly, almost in awe. I nodded. "I've spent my whole life funding their happiness while starving for a scrap of respect. This is the first time I'm saying no. Are you ready for the fallout?" she asked gently. I met her eyes, a steady fire burning in mine. I was born in their fallout. The only difference now is that I'm standing in it on my own terms. By the time the wedding day approached, everything was set, or rather unset. No food deliveries, no event staff, no ballroom decor, no hotel rooms reserved. The stage was ready. Not for the picture-perfect wedding my family had envisioned, but for the reckoning they had earned. And as I put on my dress that morning, calm and composed, I knew one thing for certain. When my family walked into that venue expecting a fairy tale, they would instead walk into the reality I had prepared. The day they thought would crown them would instead reveal me. The morning of the wedding dawned bright and clear, but I didn't feel the warmth of the sun. Instead, there was a steady calm inside me, like the eye of a storm. I dressed deliberately, choosing a sleek navy dress, not flashy, not understated, but powerful. I wasn't going to hide today. By noon, the Hayes Grand Ballroom should have been buzzing with florists, caterers, and decorators. Instead, it sat bare, empty, eerily silent. Chandeliers sparkled over a cavernous hall without a single table set. No food simmered in the kitchens. No hotel staff rushed to greet arriving guests. The silence was intentional. It was my statement. Guests began to arrive around 1 o'clock. I watched discreetly from the lobby balcony as confusion spread like wildfire. Families in suits and dresses pulled at locked hotel doors. Out-of-town guests argued with the front desk, clutching confirmation slips that meant nothing now. The staff, trained, under my instruction, politely repeated the same words. "We're sorry, but there are no bookings under that name." Murmurs grew louder. Confusion turned to frustration. Frustration gave way to panic. And then came my mother. Elaine Hayes swept through the lobby in a floor-length gown, her diamond necklace glinting, her face already flushed with irritation. Behind her trailed my father, quiet and stiff, and then Daniel, looking every bit the groom in his tailored tuxedo. "What is going on here?" my mother snapped at the concierge. "This entire hotel is under our reservation." The concierge glanced at me nervously. I stepped forward, heels clicking against the marble floor, and said clearly, "No, Mother, it's under mine." The color drained from her face. "Victoria." Daniel turned, his brows knitting. "What are you doing here?" "You weren't invited." I smiled coldly. "Oh, I know." "Believe me, I got the message loud and clear, but you seem to have forgotten something. While you cut me out of your wedding, you left me holding the keys." Gasps rippled through the lobby as guests turned to watch. Elaine's voice dropped into that venomous whisper I knew too well. "You will not embarrass this family in front of all these people." "Embarrass?" I echoed, laughing bitterly. No, Mother. That's what you did when you told me I wasn't welcome. That's what you did when you stole $70,000 of my money. Today isn't my humiliation. It's yours. Daniel stepped forward, his jaw tight. You can't just ruin my wedding. Everything is already paid for. I tilted my head. Paid for? With my deposit, Daniel. With my companies, my hotel, my catering. Without me, there is no wedding. So let me be clear. There will be no wedding today. The crowd erupted into whispers. Guests stared at me with wide eyes, some stunned, others almost entertained by the scandal unraveling in front of them. Elaine's face twisted with rage. You ungrateful child. After everything we've done for you? That snapped something inside me. I cut her off, my voice sharp and unwavering. Everything you've done for me? You ignored me my entire life. You belittled me. You treated me like I didn't exist unless you wanted money. Well, today the money is gone, and so is your perfect little fairy tale. For the first time in my life, my father spoke up. His voice was low, hesitant. Victoria, surely there's another way. I looked at him, my chest aching. The other way was you standing up for me years ago. You never did. So now I'm standing up for myself. Daniel's fiancé, pale and trembling, clutched his arm. Daniel, what is happening? Did you know about this? He stammered. I thought it was handled. I didn't. Her parents looked horrified, and I almost pitied her. Almost. But pity wasn't enough to erase years of neglect. Finally, I took a step closer to my mother, lowering my voice so only she could hear. You taught me one lesson very well, Mother. Appearances are everything. Today, everyone will see what kind of family you really are. She recoiled, her lips trembling with fury, but no words coming out. For once, she was speechless. I turned on my heel, calm and composed, and walked toward the exit. Behind me, chaos exploded. Guests demanding answers. Daniel shouting my name. My mother shrieking for someone to fix it. But nothing could be fixed. The contracts were canceled. The rooms were locked. The food wasn't coming. The wedding was over before it began. And I was finally free. When I stepped out of the Hayes Grand Ballroom that day, the sound of chaos still echoed behind me. Raised voices, hurried footsteps, panicked questions. Guests who had flown in from across the country were realizing the wedding wasn't happening. My mother's shrill orders pierced the air, Daniel shouted in desperation. And my father, well, as always, he stayed quiet. But the moment those heavy glass doors closed behind me, the noise fell away. I exhaled for what felt like the first time in years. My heels clicked against the pavement as I walked to my car, each step lighter than the one before. For the first time in my life, I wasn't walking away defeated. I was walking away free. Later that evening, Lena and I sat in my apartment with 2 champagne flutes and a takeout pizza box spread between us. We clinked glasses, the bubbles fizzing like laughter. Well, she said with a smirk, I've seen some dramatic weddings, but I think you just broke a record. I laughed, really laughed, my stomach aching from it. You know what the crazy thing is, Lena? I thought I'd feel guilty. I thought I'd be crushed, but I don't. I feel lighter, like I've been carrying a weight for 32 years and I finally set it down. She raised her glass, to setting it down. We drank, and for the first time I allowed myself to savor the sweetness of victory. Not petty revenge, but the strength of finally standing up for myself. Of course, the fallout came quickly. My phone buzzed nonstop with calls from relatives, texts filled with anger and confusion. Some accused me of cruelty, others begged me to explain. A few even whispered that they secretly admired me for finally standing up to my parents. I didn't respond to most of them, because for once I didn't owe anyone an explanation. The next day, I opened my email to find a long message from my mother. Pages of rage, accusations, and the same tired refrain. You embarrass this family. You ruined your brother's happiness. You will regret this. I didn't even finish reading it. I deleted it with one click. And that felt better than any reply ever could. But not all the messages were bitter. 2 weeks later, I got an unexpected email from Daniel's fiancée, Marissa. Victoria, she wrote, I don't know everything that happened between you and your family, but I need you to know something. When your mother told me you were uninvited, I thought it was cruel. When I found out they also kept your money, I thought it was unforgivable. Yesterday, watching you stand up to them, I realized how strong you are. I hope one day I can be that strong too." I stared at her words for a long time, my chest tightening. Maybe Daniel would never understand. Maybe my parents would never forgive me. But Marissa had seen the truth, and that meant something. In the weeks that followed, life settled back into a rhythm. My businesses thrived, my staff respected me more than ever, and I finally stopped waiting for the approval that was never coming. One night, sitting on my balcony with Lena, I found myself reflecting out loud. "You know," I said, "I used to think love and respect had to be earned, that if I worked harder, gave more, sacrificed everything, eventually my family would see me. But I was wrong. Respect isn't bought, it's demanded. And sometimes the only way to get it is to walk away from the people who will never give it." Lena nodded, her eyes soft. "So, was it worth it? Burning it all down?" I smiled. It wasn't burning it down. It was letting go of the ashes I'd been clutching all my life. Now I finally have room for something new, and that's the lesson I carry with me. Family isn't defined by blood or by the name you share. It's defined by who shows up for you, who respects you, and who loves you without asking for a check in return. I stopped paying for love that was never there, and in doing so, I finally found my own worth. So if you've ever been overlooked, dismissed, or treated like you weren't enough, hear me when I say this. You don't need their validation. You don't need their seat at the table. Build your own table. Stand tall at it. And don't let anyone convince you that your value is measured by what you give them, because the truth is, your value is yours alone. And once you see it, no one, not even family, can take it from you. And that's my story. I didn't just cancel a wedding. I canceled years of silence, years of letting myself be treated like I didn't matter. Walking away from my family's toxic expectations wasn't easy, but it was the most freeing decision I've ever made. If there's one thing I want you to take from this, it's this. You don't owe anyone your peace of mind, your dignity, or your hard-earned success. Not even family. Respect is not bought with money. It's demanded by standing firm in who you are. Now, I want to hear from you. Have you ever had to set boundaries with family or walk away from people who didn't value you? Share your story in the comments. I read every single one, and your words might help someone else who's going through the same thing. And if this story resonated with you, if it made you think, if it made you feel, if it made you stronger, do me a favor, hit that like button. It lets me know you want more stories like this. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel and turn on the notification bell so you never miss when a new story drops. And if you know someone who needs to hear this message, share this video with them. You never know whose life it could change. Thank you for watching, for listening, and for being part of this journey with me. Until next time, stay strong, stay true, and never let anyone decide your worth but you.